I often think about how I'd do in a battle royale situation. The answer is terribly.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Hello, and welcome back to Gateway to Anime. How are y'all? What's going on? Charlie, welcome. What's going on?
Hi, not much. Happy to be here. We've got some really amazing figurines.
We do.
We thought we'd do some mise en scène. Then if you guys study film, you know what I'm talking about.
There it is. Charlotte just finished a degree.
We're like, yeah. I don't know if you guys know I have a Bachelor of Performing Arts. So,
Yes.
if anyone wants to pay me heaps of money, said no one ever. But it's actually really exciting. None of it are ours. It's actually all Graham, which brings us to our third host for the day.
Hello, Graham. How are you, my friend? Oh, he's got his mug.
My
He's
God.
bought his mug today. For those who are
Should we
listening.
do a weird cheers?
He's bought his
cheers?
mug. We're all cheersing now
Oh,
with our mugs.
better for having a
Why
mug.
is it so wet?
Because I washed it out before.
I just went.
Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, today we are talking about Battle Royale / Deathmatch anime. Now, the biggest show in the world right now, well, we're probably a little bit off the time of it being the biggest show in the world, but Squid Game, of course, took the world by storm. And as it should have, it was fucking great.
Fantastic.
Did you all enjoy it?
Loved it.
I told you to watch it.
You did. I'm well aware of that. I'm trying to tell the
Me and
audience.
90% of the world told you to watch it.
It took the world by storm. It's a
loved it,
fantastic fucking
obviously.
show. Absolutely brilliant. But I wanted to talk about the animes and, of course, other shows. And there's something that we'll talk about very soon. In fact, it's eponymous. And we need to talk about it because really this whole genre began. Now, you can go all the way back to 1924 for this kind of thing, The Great Hunt. But there are many, many shows which have started this thing. But the Deathmatch Battle Royale thing is a massive, massive deal. And Squid Game showed us how it can be done really well. But anime's been doing it for a long time. And I mean, you can go through all sorts of media to find these sorts of stories. And you can go back to Lord of the Flies.
For some reason,
Totally. But
Hunger Games is jumping into my head.
Funny
that was a.
Funny that.
That's because.
That was also a
massive
worldwide
one.
phenomenon.
Yeah.
But of course, many people accused that writer of stealing off someone who wrote a little novel back in 1996. I am, of course, talking about Battle Royale, which has been an entire genre ever since.
Is that where it's. Because, like, honestly, if you look at Wikipedia and you look at any kind of deathmatch genre, it says Battle Royale genre. Did the actual term Battle Royale just come from
the
Battle
movie.
Royale, the movie and the book?
100%.
Oh, there you go. Talk about an impact.
Literally changed the game. But of course, it wasn't necessarily the first to do it. It was just the first to do it so comprehensively with a very established set of rules, which have now been played upon. So the movie came out in the year 2000. The book was published in 1999. So let me talk about this first. So I'm talking about Battle Royale, okay, which was a novel, a manga, and a film. It was written by a Japanese author named Kushun Takami. And after he ceased being a journalist, it was originally completed in 1996, but it was not published until 1999 due to its graphic nature. But it became, as we now know, a surprise mega hit.
And like international mega hit too.
Mega hit. And no one wanted to touch it when he wrote it in 96 because they're like, whoa, dude, this is a bit fucked up. For those who haven't seen Battle Royale, it's pretty fucked up. Like, it's graphic. It's full, like Squid Game, but probably even more so,
I
actually.
feel like that was probably the first Japanese film I saw.
Me too.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it was
before Kira Kurosawa, before all that. I think Battle Royale was
it
the
broke
one.
boundaries,
I
man.
think it really opened up. I think, like, interestingly enough, my obsession with like Japanese media would have probably started at Battle
I
Royale.
would say
Like,
so.
I mean, I was obsessed. I wore.
You were well obsessed. You went into it before I was, for
I
sure.
Were you wearing a
loved
school
it.
uniform and stabbing people?
Well, for my 20th birthday party, I dressed up as the characters and we had the full neck collar. If anyone who doesn't know about Battle Royale, a bit of just a synopsis, basically. It's set in a dystopic future in Japan where they have basically a competition every year where they assign one random high school year group to a death match where they basically get thrown different backpacks and they have a different weapon, like randomly assigned weapon, and they have to fight to the death and the last person alive wins. If no one dies, or in 3 days' time, the collars explode and kill them all. They try and escape, the collars will explode and kill you. So it's sort of like you have to take part or you're going to die.
Well, also even to the point where obviously the video game style of Battle Royale has blown up.
Oh, yeah, Fortnite.
Fortnite is the biggest game in the world, was the biggest game in the world. PUBG.
Hang on, for a novice like me, I like gaming, but I don't know about the new games. I'm an old school Final Fantasy girl myself. Don't really know much about anything else.
You've heard of Fortnite?
Yes, of course I've heard of Fortnite. Oh my God.
PUBG as well.
Yes.
Apex Legends.
But I thought PUBG was the same as Fortnite, but they're not.
Same sort of format and game where you drop into an area that shrinks.
Yes.
I think PUBG came before that.
It did.
How do you floss? The dance. Is that could I have been older in that moment? Which one do I floss in?
Which one do I floss in?
I think it's Fortnite. They do the dances. And
Correct.
stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, Fortnite was the one that kind of brought it. PUBG was a real gamer thing. And then Fortnite really made it kind of like Hunger Games, I suppose. Made it really like ubiquitous for everybody. It made it palatable.
What was funny is Fortnite, the Battle Royale was a separate game.
It was.
The main game was a zombie survival game.
That's correct.
They introduced the Battle Royale mode and it just exploded and became the mega gargantuan moneymaker that we have now.
But also the whole idea of the circle shrinking, where because if you start off and you kill people and then slowly but surely the circle around the whole map shrinks
So you have to get
until
together.
towards the very, very end, it's like you and one other person or three or four of you in the final four, all basically on top of each other. But in this film, that happens because the collars around them start to
keep them moving.
Go once they basically take certain parts of the map become uninhabitable. And you must very quickly move before your head explodes. So like every single thing about this movie has been taken by a whole video game franchise. Not even a franchise, but a whole genre.
Oh, yeah.
Literally a genre of which there are many franchises from it. It's to even explain how big of an impact Battle Royale, the novel, manga, and film actually had. It's insane.
Yeah, no one talks about it. Why isn't more lauded?
I feel like Squid Game has opened up a new kind of conversation about Battle Royale, which is good.
Yeah.
Well, he was very heavily influenced by it. The writer, he's even come out and said so.
And Hunger Games was like the thing about Battle Royale. The major difference in Squid Game is that it's involving adults and voluntary competitors, whereas Hunger Games and like took from Battle Royale, it's like school age children. I've actually read the source material, not to brag. I read the novel.
You have, yes.
Which is
very Hunger Games.
I've also read the. Not to brag,
I was very hungry.
I read the Battle Royale novel after I'd seen the film and loved it. And it's interesting because it's a fucking awesome book. If you can get your hands on it, do. But it's a very different. The movie itself, I think the highlight of the film is Takeshi Kitano as the teacher.
Yes,
really
Takeshi's Castle.
He's amazing, but he's also
Takeshi's Castle.
Yeah,
dude.
he played. But he's also an art house film director. He's like the most interesting person ever. I could do a whole TED talk on him. I love it.
Oh yeah.
So basically, with Battle Royale, like those deathmatchy things, I think there was like a bit of a phase of it in the 70s or like 80s. There was like Deathmatch 2000, that kind of thing. Like there's sort of been a couple of iterations, but you're right. Battle Royale was the one that really captured everyone's attention.
Yeah, well, it goes back to the first kind of thing you see in media in the West, at least, is something called The Most Dangerous Game in 1924, which was about a guy who was on a boat who falls off the side and ends up swimming to an seemingly uninhabited island, but is then hunted by a Russian aristocrat who is hunting the most dangerous of all man. And that's where it all begins. Like that was one of the first times.
All right.
1924. Now, there was also, of course, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, but that's not really deathmatch. It's just like
but it's
things
the
that go
lawlessness
wrong.
and creating
Tribalism.
And obviously Battle Royale
tribalism.
was hugely influenced by Lord of the Flies. Like
Battle Royale was also heavily influenced by a Stephen King novel called The Long Walk. That's what he says was his big influence. So yes, quite interesting. And then of course there's also the Cube.
I love the Cube.
I love Cube. Okay, this is speaking to me because I thought I was so edgy when I was in high school because my favorite movies were Cube. All of them. There's three.
Yes.
Battle Royale, like all this stuff. And I thought Hunger Games was lame because I was like, I know, like the coolest. Anyway.
Sitting there with your explosive collar on.
Dude, you should have seen my costume. It was pretty average, to be honest. Bit of plastic around my neck and some blood splattered on me. And, there you go.
Was Cube 3 called Cubed?
Yep. Sorry?
Was Cube 3 called Cubed?
I don't think so.
I guess.
I hope so.
There were 3 films, but again, that came out in 97, actually.
Yeah.
So that actually came out before Battle Royale.
That's a great film.
It is a great film. Explain it to people who don't know.
Do you reckon it holds up?
I haven't seen it for a very long time.
I watched a thing recently Corridor Crew did they break down special effects, and there's a scene where a man jumps into one of the cubes and he gets sliced and diced.
Yeah, it's the
and
opening
how
of
it
the
all
scene.
holds up.
Yeah.
So I think what Cube is about is people wake up in a mysterious cube, and they got to get from one cube to the next, and each cube has its own sort of
challenge.
Or
it's like booby trapped, and some of them
booby
are.
trapped.
Yeah,
You don't know what it is. And randomly, for some reason, in my head, someone jumped in. There's a man who's been in the cube for like 5 years or something, and he survives by sucking a button.
You're right. That did happen.
That didn't make that up. Yeah, right.
The second film has a sex scene in the cube.
In the
I was
cube?
like, they really were like,
Raunchy.
how are we going to appeal to the masses with this really obscure? They're like, sex sells in the cube.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what? We probably did it.
Sex in the cube.
And I often think about how I do in a battle royale situation. The answer is terribly.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
I always think every time I go into a workplace, this is probably way too much. I always like get drunk and talk to my coworkers about how I do in a battle royale situation. They're always like, "You would do terribly." I'm like, "I don't." And I'm always like, "I think I just pretend to die, and then you'll forget about me and assume someone killed me, and then I come out at the end." And they were like, "No, that's how you think it would happen." And I'm like, "Damn it!" Like, yeah, it's like the zombie apocalypse chat. I say it's as much in the kind of mainstream that you can be like, "What would you do in a zombie apocalypse?" Or "What would you do in a battle royale?" Like,
Totally.
maybe I'm just outing myself as a weirdo with conversations, but like, because everyone's had the zombie apocalypse conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Of course we have. Yeah,
Like, what would you
absolutely.
guys do? Are you saying boat or are you an idiot? Like, I don't know.
Of course.
Saying boat,
I've
are
heard
you an
people who
idiot?
talk buses.
What if it's a boat on
there's
land?
some-
Buses?
Yeah, but getting
I guess
out
I
of
could
town,
Get
like
out of the town.
What about-
you got to get out of a city,
What about
out of
like-
population.
Yeah, but hang on. But, like to be fair, same with the boat. It's sort of like assuming that you're starting in the best circumstance,
Yeah,
like
you've
assuming I
gotta
have
get out of
access to a boat. Yeah.
I've never
Who's got
even seen a
access to
boat.
Where is this
How many
boat?
friends do you ever in a fucking boat?
Oh, I'm not in Perth anymore. I had a bunch then.
I
God.
say train.
Trent, well, that's good. But
One
can you
button,
drive a train?
forward, off you go.
But what if you come up to one that's not working? There are so many problems there.
You find one that's working. That's the first.
No, but what if one in front of you isn't? You can't push it.
Isn't there an anime about that? Yeah, the
yeah, the
Cabineri.
Cabineri Fortress.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're getting
We
really.
digress.
But that's what I mean. Like it's such a big, extreme conversation that
Yes.
everyone, like, yeah. And Squid Games, I think, did it probably the best since Battle Royale. Battle Royale still has a place in my heart.
Yeah, Battle Royale is
But
fantastic.
You know who else has done a bunch of it? Anime.
Anime have done
And-
so much of it. But I wanted to talk about Battle Royale because it is, dare I say it, the undisputed king of the genre. In fact, the name itself
The Battle
has now
Royale
been
king.
co-opted into everything else. There are Battle Royale games, as we just spoke about. There are Battle Royale anime. There are Battle Royale shows. I want to talk a little bit about it. So in the 90s, Takami came up with the original story concept after having a vivid dream. He stated in a 2009 interview, "I was lying on my futon, half asleep, half awake, and I got the mental image of a teacher from a school drama I saw on TV long ago. He said, 'All right, class, listen up. Now today, I'm going to have you kill each other.' The image of him grinning as he spoke was so vivid, I laughed, but also was terrified. And with just that, I knew I had something to write about." So that's where it came to him. And that all makes sense, right? But then also, he came up with the title after discussing the concept with friends who said it sounded like a pre-imagined pro wrestling battle royale match. Takami then took particular interest in the social aspects of a battle royale match, such as how former enemies work together in order to defeat a stranger or a stronger foe, and particularly how former allies betray each other for their own glory. Wrestling is another perfect example of this. MMA. I mean, you look at this, people look at Squid Game and stuff and go, wow, that's crazy. I was like, well, it's not that far from ancient Rome with the gladiator thing.
I was going to say gladiators.
yeah.
Gladiators, MMA, literal cage fighting, which is now unbelievably ubiquitous and is normalized. 20 years ago, it wasn't. Reality television as well, in many ways. Like Big Brother is essentially
It's a battle
us
royale,
locking people in.
full of
It's a battle royale.
Fight people
Survivor
out.
is a battle royale. All of these things are this,
Bachelor.
and it's The Bachelor.
Oh my
all
God,
of these
that's
things.
that's
100%.
arguably the toughest of all.
100%. And so, from the world building, he was inspired by his upbringing in 1960s Japan, when large groups of revolutionaries fought back against police brutality. His depiction of a totalitarian fascist government was also influenced by his favorite Stephen King novel, which I mentioned before, The Long Walk, which is about a walking contest organized by a totalitarian government.
Is
right?
Takeshi's Castle just the Hunger Games, just with like
Oh my God,
no
it
one
is.
dies?
Yes, but it actually is.
100%.
Yeah.
We can't confirm that no one died in that show. It's brutal.
People
It's
take
so
some hard
savage.
hits.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's insane. And Kill Bill was heavily influenced by this film as well.
Yeah.
Tarantino said as much. And also, of course, we spoke about it before, but Suzanne Collins with
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games, and she has sworn black and blue that she has never even seen Battle Royale before writing it.
To be fair, I could believe that. Like,
I'm not going to sit here and say anything else, but like,
not, and as we said, like we're like even Battle Royale, we're like it's not original. It's obviously like you can just look back to Gladiators or this kind of like
or the Cube. And I mean, the Cube is still like so many things, but it's just that what Takami did with Battle Royale was bring all those elements together so cleanly.
Oh yeah,
so effectively.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and it's then been taken on since then. But also from around the same time was an anime called Gantz.
Oh God,
So Graham,
we're here.
We're going to talk about, before we get too bogged down into the whole history of every Battle Royale ever existed, let's talk about the animes, which if you like Squid Game, you can watch these and let's track it because Gantz came out in 2000 as well.
2004.
Yeah.
I believe. So written and illustrated by Hiroya Oko, by Gonzo Studios.
Mm-hmm.
You might know them as the studio that did Afro Samurai, Full Metal Panic, and Hellsing. Gantz came out around 2004, which the aesthetic really is 2004.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of black leather PVC, very tight clothes, hyper-violent sort of show. The story follows Kai Korono and Masuru Kanto. They're basically two high school students that are killed in the stupidest accent I've ever seen.
It's a train though, right?
It's a train. But
not a truck.
Not a truck. This is pre-truck.
No. But at least when someone gets hit by a truck, it's always like, oh, it's a sudden thing. So spoilers, what happens is a drunk homeless man falls onto a train track and the two high school students go to help him out. They get him up on the train, what do you call it? The platform.
Yep.
And then instead of them just jumping on the 3 foot high platform, they decide to run down the track and they get hit by a train and die.
It happens.
It doesn't?
I hope not.
Does it really? I'm not taking enough trains. Zombie apocalypse, that's when I'll get on the train.
That's when you get on the train.
You love trains.
I love trains. Yeah.
Charlotte's on a boat, I'm on a bus, you're on a train.
I'm on a train. It's not going anywhere. Be like with the Orient Express, all fine dining cars or something. Oh, look at those peasants.
Sounds nice.
Oh, big fucking cigarette. So they die. They run down the platform. They get beheaded, and then there's this sort of inner monologue where the students are like, "What are these people looking at?" Because obviously they're beheaded, and so just as they're about to die, they get teleported or transported or 3D printed into a room by Gantz, which is this black. What do you call that shape? Round sphere. Thank you.
It looks like one of those Tell My Future.
Yeah.
What are those called? Tell My Future.
Magic 8 Ball?
Magic 8 Ball.
And they are basically recruited with a bunch of other people who have just died at the time to basically be bounty hunters for aliens that are living amongst us. They go out on missions, they get specialized weapons, they get specialized suits, and the aim of the game is to survive to the next round. And as you kill aliens and work your way through it, you're accruing points. And what these points are, I don't know because I only watched 7 episodes. That's basically the gist. And I did not like it.
Gantz, it feels to me like it's an influential show.
Yeah.
Without actually being very good. It hasn't held up.
Yeah, look, some of you didn't watch it in your edgy teen phase and it shows because I loved it when I watched it in my edgy teen phase. I remember thinking Gantz was the coolest. Now looking back, absolutely not. You're right. It's so
it's a trash
dumb.
fire. But again, if you're watching it in 2004, when
Yes.
things like The Matrix and stuff are coming around and all these science fiction concepts are permeating pop culture, you can get on board with it. But looking at it now, with its really bad rendered CGI spheres and rooms, its characters are atrocious as well. The main character is such a piece of shit. The sound editing, I'm going to talk shit about this show. So if people love it, I don't.
I think people like the source material more than they like the anime.
Yeah, because the manga came out in the year 2000. So early. Again, it's an important piece, for the deathmatch battle royale
100%.
genre, which started many things in the manga and anime industry. In fact, like I say, it would have come out simultaneously with battle royale.
Yeah.
So not necessarily influenced by each other at all, just simultaneous.
I think, again, like Charlie was saying, if I was 14 years old, I'd be like Gantz's life.
Yes.
But as someone who's in their 30s,
Gantz ain't live.
Gantz ain't live. Gantz ain't live.
Can confirm.
It's true.
And it's one of the sound editing is absolutely atrocious as well. It's got a really weird sort of reggae hip hop opening theme, which is it's so bizarre and so good. The choices are baffling. When they're trying to build tension for anything. There's just random sounds of like dentist drills and like drawers opening and stuff. Like it's terrible. It's absolutely shocking. Like, it pulls me out every episode I watched. I was like, what random cacophony of sounds are they going to chuck at me now? Like cymbals and shit. For like, guy's going to go to bed and there's cymbals playing in the background. Like, what the fuck is this?
No one's sleeping to that.
Plus, it is insanely horny.
Yeah, no, it's actually deeply problematic.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
bad.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Like the first female character you're introduced to arrives naked in the room of the dead people.
Yeah.
And then for some reason there's a dog that just randomly starts licking her genitals. And she's like,
that's a lot.
Stop. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Who's that for?
That's like edgy for the sake of being edgy.
Yeah, there's
it's
no
like,
reason for it.
okay, why?
And then instantly there's a rape scene.
Yeah, it's certainly
actually
aged
bad,
very, very
bad.
poorly.
Aged terribly, probably shouldn't have been.
But yeah, it's the whole thing of like killing
don't
aliens,
watch
and if you
Gantz.
kill the aliens, you get the points, and then you can go back into real life and
You get to spend your
all
day
that. Yeah.
being, like your death never happened.
Yes.
Apart from the girl who slits her wrists in the bath, but then she's revived at the hospital after the process has happened, which is actually quite interesting because she's not just like she's lost her entire life. She doesn't have anything. Then she has to go live with this horny dude who's constantly like feeling her up and stuff. But the actual mechanics of how that happened is quite interesting. It's just buried under all like her taking a shower and stuff.
Yeah, I tried to watch it about 10 years ago, and I probably got about 10 episodes in before I was like, this kind of sucks. Like, the reason we put it on the list here is because it's very important in regards to like this genre.
In a death game sort of space.
It's very famous.
It's very famous, but again, not something I'm going to sit here and tell people to watch.
Yeah. There's a good show in there. I mean, if they were to do a remake today and like tone that stuff down, and
might work,
I think it'd be fine. It's just it's just poor production and poor storytelling choices.
Yeah.
Early 2000s edgelord bullshit.
Yeah. Literally the year 2000.
Yeah.
The manga came out. So
it suffers for probably the time it was made.
21 years old.
Yeah.
It's and like it's not excusing any of the problematic issues, but like it's just like
So basically, don't watch it. There's heaps of other stuff to watch.
No, don't. But I wanted to bring it up because I think it's like it's so important to have this whole genre spawning in the anime sphere, right? Mm-hmm. So Charlie, why don't you tell us about your show, which is also one of the speaking of edgelord and like slightly problematic.
Yeah, well, funnily enough,
the genre is pretty problematic.
Yeah, it is, and I think that it really does because it has.
But Royale's fucked too.
It is. It is
it's
absolutely
like really rough,
Yeah,
but
so
like,
Squid Game.
So Squid Game messed up.
I say this really enhances an edgelord kind of behavior, and it brings up like a 2000s vibe with it. I don't know.
I think it's because once you take away the social constructs of what we all live by, and you're just left with like that lawlessness, this is the perception anyway, that people just seem to be murdering, raping, pillaging all the way through it.
Totally.
So I guess that's inherent to the actual genre itself.
Yeah. And I think that's obviously a big part of it. Walking Dead, all of these sort of like post-apocalyptic shows, it's half of the currency they're dealing in is brutality. And that's half the reason we want to watch it too. Because it is that fucked up voyeuristic, like fucked up reality television. Take reality television to its most extreme.
Yeah.
Go back to the Colosseum. All sport is essentially
Frozen
just metaphors for war. Like it's all there.
Yeah.
And so when you see these things, which are basically just metaphors for humans at their most base level and fighting for their lives in a set construct of rules, we can all like empathize with it to a degree, because like, as you said before, what would I do in that situation?
Probably, hopefully none of that.
I mean, in Squid Game, the great thing about this, anyone who hasn't seen it, you probably should have seen it by now, but the two lead guys, diametrically opposed, like one chooses virtue and one chooses victory, and like whatever it takes kind of thing, which is also, of course, especially nowadays, metaphor for capitalism. And of course, Squid Game, a whole massive part of it is this huge debt culture, which is prevalent in South Korea right now. It's so easy to get a personal loan. Always these stories come from the context from which they derive.
I think it's important to note in these particular ones we're talking about, like some of them feature death game matches that are voluntary for people to play in, like Squid Game. Yeah. Well, I mean, is it voluntary? I think like people actually get, and other ones really are like, you get hit by a train and you get decapitated and then you're
stuck in alien hunting land.
Terrible soundtrack. To,
drills and draws.
Shockingly bad.
Constantly.
Hunger Games again, not that you get drawn out of a hat, like that kind of thing. I think that like the more like involuntary it is, the more edgy the show it seems to be as well.
Yes.
Like So on that note,
Yes.
not that this is as edgy as Gantz. I don't think it is.
No.
But it definitely
Still right up there.
follows suit. Like it definitely has got a heart in its 2008 release date for the manga,
Yes.
2011 for the anime.
Yep. Still old. 10 years old.
Yeah, I mean, we're old. So what are you gonna say? There's no
That's
point to
true.
that statement, but yeah. So I'm talking about a show called Mirai Nikki, and it is actually translated to be The Future Diary.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually was pretty late to the party this one, and I only watched it for the first time for this episode. So
Right.
it's one of those very famous animes
Oh,
that everyone,
yeah.
and I know the characters. There's a very, I'll get into this soon. There's some very iconic characters in the show that
Oh, yeah.
are like the kind of the level of how people like it's sort of people.
Have you cosplayed any of them?
No, I haven't. Don't worry.
Damn.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Can't wait. I go as the diary, like
As
his
the
phone.
diary.
I can't like everyone's just like okie dokie, like
I'm
so-
a Death Note.
So I'll give you a quick synopsis about this show.
Yes.
Yukiteru Amano is the protagonist. He's 14 years old. He is a loner. And he basically goes to high school every day, doesn't speak to anyone, but he has his cell phone, which he has a diary in. His cell phone, which is like a really hilariously 2000s like flip phone
Is that
thing.
the flippy one?
Yeah, and he just basically it's not even a diary. It's important though for a plot point that he just writes what happens around him. So he's like, these people went to lunch, and he like just meticulously always is writing in his diary, one might say.
Sure, diary?
No, maybe. Anyway, but it's funny because he's like, but also the way he copes, because his mum's always absent, working, whatever, he copes by going into his imagination. So he goes home and he shuts his eyes and he talks to his imaginary friend who is a deus machina. So literally the god of space and time. And he's just like, thank God for my imaginary friend, the god of space and time, who's this big, giant, pretty bad CG at this point in time.
yeah,
But like,
yeah.
honestly, I was like, I like the design, but all this shit happens and the god is like, you know what? I choose you to take part in this contest. This kid's like, good one, imaginary friend, ha ha ha. Anyway, he's walking to
Lol
school
jokes.
and he looks at his phone and he goes to write it and he sees that there's already entries in there. And everything that happens suddenly he's like, oh my God, it's predicting the future. It's like a future diary.
Ooh.
Yeah. So basically,
Almost in the title.
then all this shit happens. He realizes as he reads the diary that he's about to die. It's like, you're going to, and then it's like end game.
Was there a train coming?
And you just really was just like, no. They could all link up at this point. But this one's interesting. And I feel like this is a combination of the two shows we're going to talk about.
Yes.
Because he gets a death notice. I think it's called that. It's like end game or end of game or whatever. And then the serial killer tries to kill him. But then this girl in his class suddenly appears and fights the person down and helps him out. Turns out she also has a diary of some description, a phone diary. Basically, he then gets summoned to Deus Machina's thing and he's there and you can't, it's actually a really cool scene where they're all standing on the clock thing and they're all kind of disguised and he finds out that he's now in a contest to become the next Deus Machina and you can use, everyone has a different style of phone diary.
So it's all
So he's got,
diaries.
he's got the future diary, but
right.
everyone
Future
has
diaries.
mysterious ones and he has a target on his back because Deus Machina says that he's the favorite to win. And basically no one knows who they are. They have to figure out who they are. And the last one standing becomes the new god of space and time.
Yes.
Sounds like Platinum End.
Yeah, that is.
Very much so.
It's Platinum
Stole
End,
it.
but without the flip
But
phones.
there's all this Death Note stuff, you know?
Dude, and because-
It's a death match thing. It's all the same genre, just different
Just
plots
different,
plugged in.
yeah.
And
right?
because of the aesthetic, it actually reminds me, because I think, like, I feel like because of that late 2000, early 2010s kind of aesthetic, it actually looks a bit like Death Note. Like, it looks kind of emo aesthetic. So the show itself is famously edgy. You know, there's lots of violence, lots of weird fan service. But most importantly, it has got a very, very famous female lead. And she is what we would describe as a yandere, who is a character archetype in anime, which is, so there is Sundere, who
Sundere.
is the,
Yep.
basically Sundere means that you are, if you've seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, Asuka is a perfect example of this. Basically,
Asuka
it means
more
that
so,
you're
yeah.
kind of like, you show your affection by being angry and you can't like, when you kind of, you're loud and aggressive to the person you like.
start off not liking the person and then later on like them. It's kind
But you still
of-
react in an aggressive way
Yes.
and you're loud and like a lot, like Toradora is a great example of that. But Yandere is where they start off sweet and lovely, but it turns out they're actually psychopathically obsessed with you. So this character is the most popular girl in his year. Turns out she's been stalking him. Her diary is the love diary, and it is only information about him, and he's never even known that she's even looked at him, but she's actually completely obsessed. And there's, I feel like it's like famous anime images. She's got pink hair and she's always like looking creepy, and that's like, she's like a famous, very famous character. She's from Future Diary. So as a whole, I say, embarrassingly enough, I enjoyed myself watching it. I was like, this is so stupid. Like, so many edgy things happen. There's people dying for no reason, lots of stabbing in eyes and like hecticness and like weird gods for no reason. Violent. Like, it's pretty full on. But if you want some trash and some there's at least like some, like, it's kind of good fun to watch, but I mean, it's problematic. But I would say Future Diary is not as trashy as Gantz in that way, or like not as... It sort of knows itself a bit better because they're dealing with gods. Yeah. Like, a lot of the characters have like supernatural abilities. Like, I feel like Gantz is a bit more like, I don't know. Like, I don't
know. Quite seriously, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that, but they don't go anywhere interesting. It's just someone's apartment. Like,
Future Diary has some humor about it, and
also it's more aware of itself because it's later in the game of the genre. You know,
but it's still edgelord bullshit. I think there's better deathmatch things out there for if you really want to have a throwback, I think it's kind of harmless in that way.
I want to watch a classic battle royale deathmatch anime. Mirai Nikki is one of the. Oh, if you Google it, it will be the first thing that comes up. Okay. Like, almost no question. Or it will be what I'm about to talk about, which is
the high-end award.
Yeah, Sam got the good one. It's one of my favorite shows too, so I can talk about it.
Interestingly, what I'm about to talk about, very much one of the top. But this whole multimedia conglomerate monster is also full of trash. This is the Fate series.
Oh, God.
It's mostly trash.
Now, I have wanted to talk about the Fate series for a long time on this podcast, but I've deliberately stayed away from it because not only... If I was to go through the actual whole Fate series from top to bottom, not only would it take this whole episode, it would take the whole series of this episode. Yeah. It would take forever. This thing is an absolute behemoth.
Never look up watch order because it is.
Don't watch the watch order. It's like, and let me tell you, I've watched 5 different Fate series. Okay, I've done a lot,
and there's like one every season. I'm like Fate / Charlie. I'm like, I guess I'll watch that. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? It's like My Life somehow, slice of life. I'm like, what the hell? Like that,
just
everything.
Different versions of Charlie, different cosplay.
It never stops. It never ends. But the one that I'm going to talk about is, of course, Fate Zero. And if you haven't watched Fate Zero, you very much should, because this is in my top 10.
I feel like it's the only one I've ever watched.
Well, you should. It's all you need to watch, because the rest of it, honestly, kind of sucks.
What's the other one? The other
Fate Stay Night?
Yeah, I watched that too.
Yeah, look, Fate, that was the original.
Not as good.
No, it's not.
Zero's better.
But yeah, let me explain this. I'm gonna have to, before I get to the actual synopsis of what Fate Zero is, I'm gonna have to explain a whole bunch of things. So please bear with me. But this, I'm gonna TLDR this as much as I can.
Please, for the love of God.
But this is a massive fucking enterprise.
As a thing, you should watch Gigook's YouTube video about him trying to unscramble the Fate.
It's like an hour long.
It's huge.
It's madness. Like, honestly, it's like, I'm only going to breeze over this as fast as I can, but like, let me explain. So Fate Zero is a Japanese light novel written by Gen Urobuchi, who wrote Madoka Magica. He also wrote Psycho Pass. So like, this guy is why Fate Zero is so fucking good, because this guy has a gun. But illustrated by Takahashi Takeuchi, who basically illustrated most of the early Fates, and is a prequel to All Roots in Type Moon's visual novel Fate Stay Night. It was written in 2006 and was serialized as a manga from 2011 to 2017, published by Kadokawa Shoten. So a visual novel. Let me explain what that is, because we've talked about a few of them on this podcast, but I'm just going to like go through what is a visual novel, what is a light novel. It gets kind of confusing even for me, but let me explain once and for all what this stuff is. So a visual novel is an interactive fiction video game genre featuring text-based story with narrative style of literature and interactivity aided by static or sprite-based visuals, most often drawn in anime style, but sometimes live-action stills are used. They resemble mixed media novels. It's basically a choose-your-own-adventure, but a game. They're games, but they're novels. It's weird.
Like Steins Gate is a visual novel.
Steins Gate is one of them, and so is
Oh, heaps of them.
Clannad.
ReZero?
ReZero is a
light novel.
Oh,
This is my point. This is why I'm breaking these down. But Clannad After Story, visual novel. Steins Gate, visual novel, which were all adapted into mangas and animes. But they are basically video games, which you choose, and it's mostly clicking through text with static visuals, and then you go through them. Like a choose your own adventure novel. That's what they are. So visual novels are especially prevalent in Japan, where they made up nearly 70% of all PC games released in 2006 at their peak. These games are separate from adventure games, which incorporate problem solving and other types of gameplay. Visual novels consist primarily of narration and have very few interactive elements. Also, a lot of them can be dating sims and or hentai.
I mean, Fate is hentai, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of them straddle the line.
There's like
some of them are full hentai.
hentai,
Some of them are like dating sims / games. Like it's quite a blurry line.
This is a really
it's a fascinating topic. This is why I've been so reticent to touch it, because it's so big. Let's now talk about what a light novel is. So a light novel is a style of Japanese young adult novel, primarily targeting high school and middle school students. The average length of a light novel is 50,000 words, and they're usually published in bunkoban style, so like kind of like manga, smaller. Often they are done with dense publishing schedules. Light novels are commonly illustrated in manga art style and often adapted into manga and anime, as we know. Whilst most light novels are published only as books, some have their chapters first serialized in anthology magazines before being collected, not dissimilar to how manga is published. And some famous light novels are, of course, Spice and Wolf, The Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, ReZero, Sword Art Online, and the Monogatari series. So a lot of these start off as web novels. Different thing again.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a whole thing. So light novels, web novels, visual novels, games, web novels, things published as text on the web, and light novels which get published into mostly small looking novels. That is the three big differences. I just wanted to explain that because even for me, it's like sometimes I get confused. I'm like, wait, light novel, visual novel, what the fuck's the difference? That's the difference. There you go. Fate Stay Night was the progenitor of this whole franchise, and it was originally an adult visual novel, so again, a game, developed by Type Moon and originally released for Windows on January 30th, 2004. Now, there are three main plot routes which each player can take, again, like the choose your own adventure thing. You got the Fate route, the Unlimited Blade Works route, and the Heaven's Feel route. So, a manga series was then serialized in Kadokawa Shoten's Shoten Ace magazine between February 2006 and December 2012. A 24-episode anime series called Fate Stay Night, which was the first, was created by Studio Dean, who made Rurouni Kenshin, Original Fruits Basket, Log Horizon, and that aired in 2006, which followed the Fate route of the visual novel. This was followed by a movie, which was the original Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, also created by Studio Dean in 2010. Not to be confused with the season of Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works made by Ufotable in 2015, which followed the second route of the visual novel like the movie, but did it far more in-depth. So then, of course, you've got Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel, which were three movies following the third route of the visual novel. The first film was called Presage Flower, which was released in 2017. The second, Lost Butterfly, 2019. And the final film, Spring Song, in 2020. That was all by Ufotable. So that was basically the one game, three different routes of the choose your own adventure done by different studios across, and they're all so different with the same characters doing completely different things. So this is why it gets so unbelievably confusing. And this is just one part of it. One part. But I can't begin to tell you how big this franchise is. I mean, in 2019, they released Fate Grand Order, which was a game, a gacha game. And that was on Twitter in 2019. Fate Grand Order was mentioned 1.2 billion times on Twitter. And for a fucking mobile game, which started off as a visual novel, is just insane. It made $4 billion as a free mobile game.
Those gacha games, man.
$3.3 billion coming from Japan.
People shelling out big bucks for JPEGs of anime girls.
Dude, it's insane
that's what it is.
how big this fucking thing is. And I'll explain how the gacha thing sort of works. The gacha game is basically you get to pull, kind of like pulling a fucking poker machine to get a character. There are many different characters.
It's a loot box.
It's all random. It's a loot box system.
It's just a loot box.
Loot box system, and it's randomized, and you can pay money to get various loot boxes to pull a specific character.
Yeah.
which you will then control for the game, but it's all random. So why is this important? So let me explain what the general premise of the Fate series is, and then I'll talk about Fate Zero. I'm sorry for this being confusing, but there's so much to get through. So
We should just leave.
Honestly.
Come back.
well, the series always focuses around an event called the Holy Grail Wars. And they involve masters, generally accomplished mages, summoning servants who are heroic spirits who battle each other until the last remaining pair can claim the Holy Grail, which can grant any wish.
Yeah.
That's basically what this thing is. So when you're playing a gacha game, of course, you're playing to pull the best heroic spirit, the best servant, right? There are 7 classes. You've got assassin, you've got lancer, you've got rider, you've got caster, you've got archer, you've got berserker, you've got saber. Then what you do is you basically, every 60 years, the Holy Grail War is called, and the masters are chosen kind of at random. The famous mage families have ways of kind of making it work for
Don't you
them.
have to summon, you have to do some kind of
You do,
ceremony?
but you get picked. So you get picked, and what happens is command seals appear upon one's hand, like a stigmata type thing.
Oh, like
And
virtual
those-
prison.
like virtual prison.
Is actually, honestly, we're surprised if virtual prison is Fate/virtual prison. Like, I would, like, Vampire
59th
Eurovision.
The 59th installment of the
Honestly,
festival.
it would make more sense than half of them there.
It would. So
Sorry.
you get these command seals appear, and then you get to summon. You must, as a mage, generally it's mages who get picked, but sometimes it's completely random people who get picked
Like
as well.
serial killers. And
Well, just, completely randos. And you've got to pull these 7 heroes, but you then get attributed a class. And then to summon a hero, to make it work in your favor. For example, you could summon Hercules, you could summon Lancelot, you could summon Sir Arthur, which is Saber, the best one.
is Hercules in one of them?
He is.
Is he rider?
No, he's Berserker
Oh, is he berserker?
in Heaven's Feel.
Interesting.
So it's crazy. But this is
They're
how
all
it was-
historical figures, which is
All
like very
historical
cool.
figures,
So like
all
for
the
history
Alexander
nerds, it's
the
actually
Great.
fun.
Yeah, all these sorts of things. But basically, you can summon them into different classes, and that's how you can get powerful. So basically, if you summon Gilgamesh, as in the Tale of Gilgamesh, the oldest bit of fiction that exists, as an archer, you basically win because he's OP.
Or do you?
However,
Don't spoil the series.
However, again, the command seals, you can use 3 commands to make the servant do whatever you want. You have 3 of them, but you also have to have a relationship with them, because if they don't listen to you, like perhaps Gilgamesh, who is so arrogant that he doesn't give a fuck about what you're going to say to him, if you're wasting command seals to be like, hey, dude, go over there, you're going to lose to someone who's actually friends with their servant, who's like, hey, bro, like, help me out. And they're like, yeah, cool, no worries.
Yeah.
No need for a command seal.
And it's like, things like if you have Berserker, they're usually insane, so they won't listen to anything you're saying,
Correct.
but they're the strongest. So it's a thing where you're kind of like, it's actually really fun. Like,
It's actually a really
Lancers
fun
are
show.
really, really loyal.
Lancer is a great
I like how I'm talking
character.
like dog breeds. I'm like,
Yeah.
Lancers are really loyal, but like,
This
this
is how it
smart.
works.
Like,
They don't
So you can-
shed.
You can see how this show works. So
Oh,
it's a
it's
battle
so
royale.
sick.
So every 60 years, 7 different mages are picked to battle for the Holy Grail, which grants you any wish. There are 3 major families, the Einsburns, the Mataus, and the Tosakas, who started this whole thing. I'm not going to get too detailed into this, but they started the whole thing. So they always have at least someone competing for them. And then there's many other people who get to join. But to get a heroic spirit that you want, you need to find a piece of them as a relic. So you can find, say, Sir Arthur's sword, which is Excalibur,
Yeah,
or a
just
bit of,
casually.
or a
Just
bit
just
of,
found Excalibur.
yeah,
Don't worry about it.
or
Yeah,
a
I
single bit of
found
their
it.
clothing they were
Hang
Hang on,
wearing.
do you think in
Parking
like
lot.
when we're dead in the ground, do you think that they do this again? You'll like summon Conor McGregor? like what? Like
That's actually an interesting point.
Like,
He's
who
a
the
modern
fuck
warrior.
is a
Or
modern warrior?
Ben
He's a
Robert
modern
Smith
warrior.
or something, which is like
I'm
kind
like-
of messed up. Like, the
like
SAS
I don't
guy.
know. Like who would you
Good
summon
question.
and who would you want to
Mike
fight for
Tyson?
you?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Like seriously, I'm trying to think of who the
Seriously,
fuck
it's a
you would
good
summon.
point.
His mental list.
The Rock?
The Rock.
The Rock.
Like I would summon the Rock.
Stone Cold Steve. My God, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, like-
They're coming in to fight for the Holy Grail.
Yeah, like I'm just
Find a
like
Rock's eyebrow somewhere. Like,
There are so many fake
Choose a
shows. I
fighter.
watched 5 of them at least. Okay, and let me tell you, all of them fucking suck, except Fate Zero.
Zero, yeah.
Fate Zero, made by Ufotable, Demon Slayer, and of course they also got very, very famous for this.
I think that the fight scenes in Fate Zero are better than Demon Slayer because they didn't
They're
have to
extraordinary.
follow the manga source
they just
material.
go
So they
off,
have
yeah.
like they're fighting The way that they like stitch in CG and they're truly stunning.
It's
stunning.
Absolutely stunning. And like I've gone back and started rewatching it for this podcast, and like I remember at the time as well, I probably watched it 5 or 6 years ago. I remember just being like, this is actually fucking amazing.
What year was it, sorry?
It came out in 2011.
Yes. Same as Future Diaries.
Yeah. But
similar.
What a year.
So I will tell you a little bit about Fate Zero. So it's set 10 years before the events of Fate's Day Night, which was the first one released in 2006, and tells the story of the Fourth Holy Grail War. So the story follows Emiya Kiritsugu, who is the foster father of Shira Emiya, who is the protagonist of Fate's Day Night. It gets very confusing. But the Holy Grail War contest was founded by the three great mage families. Again, I've already spoken about that. Ignore me. So the Ironsberg family, one of the three great families, is determined to achieve victory because they have failed in the previous 3 times because they're actually alchemists purely, so their battle potential sucks. Right. However, after their failures, they decide that they're going to win this one, no matter what. So as a result, they've decided to enlist the services of the notorious mage killer Kiritsugu Emiya. Despite his dubious methods and brutal reputation as a skilled mercenary who employs whatever methods he deems necessary to achieve his goals, Kiritsugu is basically someone who wanted to be a hero back when he was young, but then realized that saving someone often comes at the expense of someone else's life. This has led him to a bleak and harsh existence as he's constantly in conflict with himself. So for the sake of humanity, he has resolved to ruthlessly destroy anything and anyone who threatens the peace of others, which means he wants to get into this Holy Grail War and fuck everybody up and win it for himself. Even though he's been like puppeted by one of the major families, he's actually got his own thing going on. And he's a great, great character. So Kiritsugu finds himself deeply torn between the love he has found, and he has been married into the Ironsberg family, and his wife is Israel Ironsberg, who's actually the master of Saber, and their daughter, Ilya. And he must do everything he can to achieve the Grail. So they've kind of got him, they're manipulating him quite heavily, but he's got his own thing going on. It's quite fascinating. But then Kiritsugu's greatest opponent, who is one of my favorite antagonists of all time, and I should have brought him up in my video, which I'm doing for YouTube.
To call him an antagonist.
Yes, it is a bit of a spoiler, but it's pretty obvious from the start. I watched the first episode last night, and I was like, "Oh yeah, you're definitely the bad guy."
He's like painted. He painted as like a hero at the start.
He starts off being like, kind of, this guy's kind of cool.
He's a priest.
He's a priest.
Yeah,
and the priests are like the church oversee the Holy Grail War every 60 years, but of course they're still biased as fuck. But that is Kotomine Kire, and he emerges as someone initially working for the Tosaka family, but then towards the end, he is quite obvious that he's got something wrong with him. He's a little bit fucked up, but then he sees Kiritsugu as someone who might be able to fill the void left in his soul. And he's like, wait, me and him, if we can fight, maybe this will be worth my while. So that's where the whole conflict comes in. So yes, that's basically the whole thing. And
but how good's Ryder though?
Ryder, Alexander the Great.
Fucking awesome.
Oh my God. So cool. And he gets, again, we were saying before, you got the 3 big families, the big mages get summoned. Sometimes randos get picked.
This kid who was mad at his master, so he stole, because you have to have an artifact to summon them.
Yes,
and he just like did it. And then this is not even happens in the first episode. Yep. And he's just a scrawny child, like a scrawny school
also
kid.
Railing against the whole hierarchy of mages, which of course you can imagine a lot of elitism going on.
And Ryder is a very strong, like it's
he
massively.
Pulls, in the gacha style, pulls Alexander the Great in the Ryder category, which is very strong.
Yeah.
But of course they have a great conflict because Ryder doesn't respect him at first, and he's like, "You're a little bitch. I'm Alexander the Great. What are you doing?" But then their relationship as it deepens throughout the show is the best thing. It's so good. Like honestly, Fate Zero,
I'm gonna go watch it.
Is fucking.
No, it's really, really
I've
good.
watched it
it's
about
so
10 years
good.
ago, but
I just want to know who's who as well because I keep their identities secret from each other. Also, it's funny because it's a death match between people who are already dead, so they don't mind battling each other that much.
The servants don't give a fuck.
Yeah. So, and also servants are for majority they have their own kind of set of morals, and a lot of them are just happy to like be like. A lot of them are kind of like, it's an honor to fight you, like blah blah.
Like Lancer.
You know, like, and they have like a honorable match or whatever, and then some of them they kind of disrespect, so they will team up to fight against those. So like the servants have their own set of rules, and it's really fun to guess who they are because you don't know at start. Like you get
they're slow to get revealed.
Yeah, and it's really fun because you're kind of like, who the hell is that?
Yes, well, I mean, assassin is someone called Asan-i-Sabah, who was a Persian warrior. The Old Man of the Mountain was his name. And he actually wasn't necessarily a warrior. He was more of a scholar. But the reason he's in the assassin class is because he managed to take over a town, a high town up on a mountain by infiltrating it. Archer Gilgamesh is technically, like on paper, by far the most powerful servant you could possibly imagine. but he's such a
The
fuckhead.
most unruly.
He comes in and he's like, I'm God. Who are you? Oh, you're a trash person. I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, he's the worst.
Like just sits around drinking wine and he's like, do something. He's like, nah.
In death matches like that, I like it when, like with Battle Royale, with the backpacks,
Yes.
randomized. Some people pull out machine guns, some people pull out pot lids.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, it sort of is just so like there's a downside of everything. So it's not so stacked in one way.
Fate Zero, I'm sorry I had to go through so much to get to the basic plot of what this fucking show is about, but like I wanted to very quickly explain the Fate series, which is so dense. I breezed over that. Like, it's,
Yeah, watch Gigook's video. He goes
it's
into it.
always the Holy Grail Wars. There's always masters and servants.
And just watch Fate Zero.
Just watch
But
Fate
just watch
Zero.
Like
Fate Zero.
that's the thing. And it's fine
Honestly.
because it's a prequel. You don't need to know anything. So just watch
it's
that.
the first, like from a timeline perspective, wasn't the first made, but the first, and again, Ken Orobuchi, who wrote it, my God.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Such a good writer. And it
I'm gonna
shows.
watch it.
And it's ufotable. It looks incredible. It is seriously one of my top 10 shows of all time.
Oh,
Straight
it's
up
so
and down.
hype, man.
Straight
The
up
first two
and down.
episodes are so hype.
Oh, it's so
Because they
good.
summon their servants in the second episode, and I love when she's like, "Are you my master?" And you're like, "Who is it? Who are they?
Who is that? Which heroic
Who is that
spirit is
person?
that?"
Like,
Yeah.
which one are you?" Like, yeah, it's so good.
It's so great. So check it out. But yeah, so those are 3 varying levels of
Successful.
good and successful deathmatch battle royale shows.
It's definitely 3 levels.
I can't watch
levels.
Gantz again because I feel like
I wouldn't
I
bother.
can't
I wouldn't
cope
bother.
with what you described.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
It's too
But there's many
problematic.
others as well. There's of course there's Alice
Yep.
in
Borderlands.
Alice in Borderlands.
It's
There's-
Kaiju counts as well, which is the
Totally.
gangster, which is actually most similar to Squid Game. In fact, there's like if you're in debt to gangsters, you can do like a bunch of gambling games to get like any kind of, also like these are just giant tournament arcs.
Oh, they're all
Tournament
just
arcs, yeah. So
Everyone.
we talk about tournament arcs a lot here. Student exams.
So many.
Are they a deathmatch? Kind of.
Yeah.
Watch it.
Totally.
Have fun.
There's just so many. But I think, honestly, if you're going to watch any, if you want to get edgy and see like what a battle royale show is at its most base level, watch Mirai Nikki. You know, like that's what it is. But if you want to watch something that's actually really fucking good, Fate Zero. It's so great. Alice in Borderlands is great too. A bit more Squid Game.
I should have done that.
Yeah, but I wanted to do. I
I've
wanted to
never
talk
watched,
about
I've
Gantz
only
because
watched
of how
a TV
important it
show.
is.
I've
Yeah.
never watched
The
the
actual anime.
anime. Yeah, I didn't. I know it was based on a manga, but
Well, actually, also do Gantz because of the reverence that name sort of carries in the anime
Yeah,
community.
and also how old it is. I mean,
and how disappointed you were.
I'm so disappointed.
but how much you know? Like I say, it came out the same time as Battle Royale.
Yeah, like it's
Same
20
year.
years old, but
Yeah.
I don't want to
Or a year after. But
Lots
There's
of good
a-
shit
there's
came out in
another-
2020.
For a problematic show, I think it's on Netflix called Batum. Have you heard of this?
Batum is another big Battle Royale show. Yes.
Where's bombs everywhere, so it's called Batum. But it's got a fucking killer, like opening track,
Oh yeah.
like really banger. Like I've actually listened to it, but I can't remember anything that happens on the show. I know that there's like edgy people with bombs
Yeah, it's super dumb.
on an island, so it's very battle royale in that
it's
way.
all Battle Royale. It's straight up
But
and down.
great opening theme, terrible show.
It's
So
not Japanese reggae rap that I had to listen to.
unfortunately not. It's not the Gaspar Sands.
All right. We're back on the Gaspar Sands fucking Haki Monogatari thing. All right, people. Jesus Christ.
How good's a good soundtrack though?
Yes.
Oh, fuck.
Anyway, I hope you learned a little bit about Battle Royale deathmatch anime. And of course, with Squid Game being so ubiquitous, we wanted to talk about it. And there's so many. There's still so many more that we haven't even mentioned. But check it out. I hope you learned a little bit of something. Charlie, thanks. Graham, thanks.
Thanks,
Good times.
guys.
Always a pleasure. Catch you
Hey,
next time.
cheers.
We
All
did
the
it.
best.
We survived this
We
death
did it.
game.
We
Gotcha.
work friendship.
Nakama.
Did it.